What should you eat before a CrossFit workout? That's an excellent question, and unfortunately the answer depends on a number of factors, including what are you trying to accomplish? Are you trying to perform your best at that specific workout? Are you a games athlete who has back-to-back workouts on a single day? Are you trying to lose weight and trying to improve your insulin sensitivity and metabolic flexibility? Are you trying to increase muscle mass or maybe lose lean muscle mass? I mean, there are so many different factors that ultimately determine what and if anything you should eat before a given CrossFit workout. Now, we're going to dive into all of that in this video so you can figure out what maybe works for you. At the end of the day, you'll have to experiment, but at least I'm going to give you some guidelines and share with you how I work out. And maybe let's start with this, because I work out every single time fasted, meaning that I have dinner the night before and I work out the following morning, typically around 8:30. So that means from 5 to 6 p.m. the day before until 9:30 the next morning, I am fasted, and I end that fast usually right after my CrossFit workout. And I have not noticed any negative performance impact on doing that. In fact, I've done two CrossFit workouts on two separate days within a 48-hour fast, and I would lie if I said that I would have performed better by being fueled. I did incredibly well, performed on a very high level by not having eaten in 2 days. But that doesn't necessarily mean everyone should be working out fasted. The reality is there are differences between, what you're trying to accomplish, but also between men and women. Believe it or not, we are not all equal. Females or women are not just small men. They are different metabolically and physically, and you need to take that into account. So maybe let's start with the differences between, sexes. Now, men, generally speaking, everyone is a little bit different, but generally speaking, men appear to be doing incredibly well from a hormonal response perspective when working out fasted, meaning that their cortisol doesn't spike incredibly, their testosterone doesn't drop dramatically if they work out in a fasted state. Women, on the other hand, there are at least some studies that suggest that by working out fasted, you get a significantly higher cortisol spike. And cortisol, the stress hormone, has the downside that it might then negatively impact certain goals that you might have. For example, if you're trying to lose weight, having high cortisol levels is typically not good. So you want to have low cortisol levels, and by working out fasted, you might negatively impact that goal. So men and women respond differently. And at the end of the day, you'll have to figure out and maybe even measure, what works for you and what doesn't. The same applies with, burning body fat. Men seem to be doing much better working out fasted and burning body fat in the process, because in the absence of food, in the absence of carbohydrates in particular, the body, if metabolically flexible, turns on fat burning mode, meaning fat oxidation, burning ketones as a source of energy, as a fuel source, and that leads to less body fat. The way I've been doing my fasted workouts has led to a body fat percentage of roughly 8%. I mean, it varies, depending on the time of the year, I guess, or the time of the type of diet I follow at a specific point, a dietary framework. But usually between 8 to 10% is my body fat, and I've not noticed any losing muscle, lean muscle tissue, what have you, by working out fasted several times a week. Again, for women, maybe slightly different. So depending on who you are, you might have to approach your pre-workout fuel strategy slightly differently. The other thing is, what are your goals? What are you trying to accomplish? If you're trying to compete at the CrossFit Games and you work out several times a day, then working out fasted is probably not the way to go. And you can probably benefit from consuming some carbohydrates and some protein before your workout, so you have free amino acids and glucose in your bloodstream that the body then can utilize during your workout, but also after the workout to recover quicker. So it's not only if you're really a competitive athlete and you're trying to compete at the games or at a very high level at least, then fueling before and between workouts is likely beneficial. And I would not recommend doing a 2-day fast and then competing at the games. Probably not a good idea. The other one is losing weight and improving body composition. Now again, for men, one of the best ways to lose body fat is to fast, or to at least be on a ketogenic diet, low carbohydrate diet, because that forces your body to burn fat for energy. And in the absence of dietary fat or even in combination with dietary fat, your body will tap into body fat as a source of energy, and that means you'll be burning fat. Fat oxidation increases. Again, for women, that is likely true to an extent, but we have to be careful about cortisol levels and other hormones that can get negatively impacted by combining two stressors, that is fasting as well as exercise, because those two things are stressors at the end of the day that you kind of have to keep in check and keep a close eye on to make sure we don't get into a too high of a stress response that will then negatively impact fat oxidation, because at that point, once you're too stressed, your body tries to hang on to everything it's got, because from an evolutionary perspective, it's like, ooh, we are in a very bad situation. We need to defend ourselves. We need to fight or flight, and we need to hang on to the resources we have. If you're in that situation, and that's especially true if you're suffering from chronic stress already, with parenting and job or what have you, throwing all of that then into the mix, meaning the fasting and the exercise, might negatively impact what you're trying to accomplish. So again, losing weight and body composition for men, fasted likely is going to work very well. For women, you'd have to be careful, and you might benefit from consuming some carbohydrates and some protein before a workout. I'm not talking about a full meal, but at least having, let's say maybe a banana or a protein shake. If you mix it with raw milk, you get your carbohydrates, you get your protein, and you're good to go. If you're a man and you're like, I think I might benefit from some amino acids, maybe having some BCAAs, in a powder form or in a whey protein shake or whatever before a workout can help as well. Again, you have to if you've never worked out with food in your stomach, you have to get used to it. Likely you might not feel great if you switch to suddenly eating something, or vice versa. If you've always been eating before and you decide now you want to cut out that pre-workout fuel, you might feel odd in the beginning. If you're used to it, I think it's perfectly fine. In terms of building lean muscle mass, that's another thing where a lot of people suggest, you need to have protein before your workout, otherwise you're going to lose muscle mass, because exercise is a catabolic event. You break down muscle tissue and you're going to lose what you have. I don't know. I've not seen that at all. I do consume a lot of protein in a 24-hour period, and I think it's more important to take care of your protein intake throughout the day than the meal timing itself. So again, I've never eaten anything, no protein or carbohydrates before a workout. I've not seen that I've lost any muscle mass whatsoever. I've been gaining, if anything at all. I've gotten stronger for sure over the years. And so I don't necessarily buy into that, but you definitely need to make sure you consume enough protein throughout the day. If you don't pre-fuel and then you do an intense workout, be it a lifting session or high intensity kind of stuff, you need that protein. Now, one of the things that I've seen, that I, not every day, but that I try to pay attention to, is to have a protein and fat post-workout. So with my first meal, then I try to have enough protein and fat in a roughly 1-to-1 ratio. I don't measure anything, but I try to eat a lot of fat and a lot of protein after a workout, because based on the studies I've seen and based on the discussions I've had with Dr. Bigman, that protein fat 1-to-1 ratio post workout leads to the best, most efficient muscle protein synthesis, much better than any carbohydrates or anything else you could do, or any pre-workout fuel. So my post-workout is what I pay more attention to, but not even that every day. There are days when I come back from CrossFit and I have to jump on a call or whatever, and I don't eat for 2 more hours. And is that ideal from a performance perspective? Maybe not, but based on my overall stress levels, it kind of mimics, or I try to mimic, some of the ancestral principles where, yes, we might out, fighting, that woolly mammoth, but we were unsuccessful. And even though we had the exertion, we didn't get the fuel afterwards. Maybe the fuel came then delayed because we found something else, we hunted something else, or we went hungry for a day and then ate, the day later. So I try to keep it interesting and try to apply an intermittent living principle, but let's not go down that rabbit hole in this video. The point here is, especially if you're a man, don't worry too much about, lean muscle mass and how that relates to eating something before. I think you can build lean muscle mass and maintain it for sure, even if you don't eat before. But again, if you feel like you need to, if you're on the leaner side already or in the smaller side, if you're not very bulky, if you have trouble building up muscle tissue, then I would recommend increase your protein intake. And by all means, try to eat 15 to 25 grams of protein, fast digesting protein, that is, so not casein or anything, more like a way before a workout, and see how it works. Maybe eat, have a shake 1 hour before, 45 minutes before, see how you feel. You don't want to drink a gallon of milk or protein shake right before a workout. You might feel terrible if you did that. Now, the fourth goal is, and that's really my primary goal for anything I do in life, or a lot of the things I do in life from a health and fitness perspective, is to improve insulin sensitivity and metabolic flexibility. I think if you pay attention to that, all of the other things kind of fall into place. And if you're trying to lose weight, it's going to be very hard if your body is not sensitive to the signals of the hormone insulin, and if you're not metabolically flexible. So if that's your primary goal, again, as a man, working out fasted is a great way to improve your insulin sensitivity and your metabolic flexibility, meaning your ability to switch back and forth between different fuel sources depending on what's available, meaning glucose or ketones, fatty acids, lactic acid, whatever is available. The body uses what it needs efficiently and effectively, and you feel good and you don't feel like crap, if you haven't eaten a meal, or if you forgot to have your pre-workout banana before a CrossFit workout. So that's what I do. I've seen a lot of good success. Now, there are some indications, or some people that think that by cycling between fasted and fed training days can even further improve metabolic flexibility. I'm not sure if that's true, but it's worth pointing out. Everyone is different, so play with it, and also play with or adjust your fuel intake based on the training volume and maybe even the workout intensity. If there are workouts like, the once a year Murph workout that I do, is it maybe ideal to fuel some before, be it with exogenous ketones or with some carbohydrates or protein or a combination thereof? Probably, because it's a grueling, long workout, and chances are you're going to be burning through your glycogen reserves. And once you have done that, you likely hit a wall. So there is an advantage to doing that. But for a 10-minute kind of HIIT workout, I don't need to be fueled. You don't need to be fueled. If you need to be fueled to exercise for 10 minutes, something is wrong, I would argue. So keep that in mind: training volume and workout intensity. Keep in mind, depending on if you're a man or a woman, play with it and see how you feel best. And then mix it up a little bit so your body gets used to different ways of exercising and performing at a very high level, whether or not you're fueled or not. And that's incredibly important, I think, for average fitness enthusiasts like you and I, maybe, because we want to keep our body guessing and just do well whatever the situation is. If we do, like, sometimes I might compete at a fun kind of competition, and I want to be fine regardless if I packed my banana or not. Again, I don't eat, but if that's you, if you usually eat a banana and then one day you forgot it, you don't want to fall apart because of that. You want to know that you can perform equally well even if you have not worked out. I would personally pay more attention to your post-workout nutrition, especially if improved recovery and muscle protein synthesis are your goal. I would not necessarily fuel up with carbs after a workout. The body has approximately 2,000 calories worth of glucose stored in the liver, in muscle tissue. So you can burn through that before you run into any serious problems. And the body has that great capability to make glucose from non-carbohydrate sources. It's called gluconeogenesis, meaning the creation of new glucose from non-carbohydrate sources. So the body can use or recycle damaged amino acids or fatty acids or whatever and make glucose out of that. So you're not going to run into any glucose issue. That's why, carbohydrates are the one macronutrient that is not essential. You don't need to consume it in order to perform and to live a good life. You need protein, you need fat, you don't need carbs. So keep that in mind. Pay attention to your post-workout fat and protein intake. That's significantly more beneficial than worrying about what to eat before or after. What I typically consume before a workout is nothing that has calories. It's electrolytes. Sometimes exogenous ketones, ketone esters. I have a separate video on the ones that I take. Those have calories, but they are really a source of fuel, much like glucose, but better in many ways. So that's something that I leverage on days where there are very intense workouts, like a Murph challenge. I fuel with exogenous ketones. Otherwise, it's just electrolytes, meaning salt, potassium, some magnesium, and that's pretty much it. That's enough to get me through workouts and to perform incredibly well in an incredibly high level. You know, based on my age, I'm 43 years old now. I'm not the youngest anymore, but that's what I've been doing. Most importantly, if you're a female and you're trying to achieve any of those goals like losing weight, etc., pay attention to how you feel and how your stress response is. You know, you might very well benefit from consuming some protein, from consuming some carbohydrates before a workout to keep your cortisol in check and to support your weight loss, fat loss, whatever goals, and not negatively impact them by putting you into complete fight or flight mode where your body tries to hang on to everything it's got, including the fat, and you're not going to burn it. So with that, we're going to wrap it up. I hope this video helped and shed some light on what you can or should eat before a CrossFit workout. If you're a man, maybe eat nothing and try and see how you feel. Chances are you're going to feel incredibly well and you're going to perform incredibly well. But let me know in the comments, what has your experience been? What do you eat? Do you eat anything before or after a workout? Let me know. I'm interested. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Like, subscribe, and I hope I'll see you in the next video.